Millions of men sacrifice their cognitive health for a shredded physical aesthetic. This is a catastrophic and fatal biological error. The modern fitness industry profits massively off mass neurobiological ignorance. They intentionally hide the severe neurological cost of extreme leanness. A visible six-pack requires a strict state of chronic starvation. This forced physiological starvation literally eats human brain tissue alive. The exact biological mechanism shrinking your gray matter is actively suppressed. Mainstream supplement empires bury this clinical data every single day. The window to reverse this cognitive damage is closing rapidly. Ignoring these next clinical minutes guarantees permanent biological brain rot. Elite human performance requires a fully dominant, highly energized prefrontal cortex. Extreme modern diets destroy that exact vital biological hardware completely. Time is running out to fix this induced metabolic disaster. Modern gym culture worships dangerously low body fat percentages. Society falsely equates a shredded torso with absolute elite discipline. This is a dangerous, highly manufactured, and toxic biological illusion. The human brain consumes massive volumes of daily metabolic energy. It requires constant, uninterrupted glucose to function at elite levels. Severe calorie restriction violently disrupts this essential neurological energy supply. When the physical body starves, primitive survival mechanisms hijack the nervous system. The brain immediately stops prioritizing complex thought and deep work. It shifts entirely into a primitive limbic panic state. Fluid intelligence drops significantly. Short-term memory fragments completely. Elite focus shatters into pieces. The aesthetic physical peak becomes an absolute cognitive rock bottom. Elite fitness influencers secretly suffer from extreme, crushing mental fog. They look physically invincible outside but decay rapidly on the inside. The human body treats this aesthetic perfection as a lethal famine. Every biological system downgrades to basic, primitive survival protocols immediately. Cognitive expansion stops completely. The brain simply refuses to waste energy on high-level executive function. The individual becomes a biological zombie wrapped in perfect muscle. This deception traps millions of men in deep intellectual poverty. They trade their cognitive supremacy for cheap, temporary social validation. The biological tax for this vanity is severe, irreversible neurodegeneration. How extreme diets starve your prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex dictates human logic, strategy, and extreme focus. It is the absolute most metabolically expensive organ in the body. It demands 20% of all daily human caloric intake. Extreme fitness diets cut this vital fuel supply completely overnight. The biological response is both immediate, violent, and highly devastating. Human body enters a forced, unnatural, violent catabolic state. Without external glucose, the starving brain literally cannibalizes itself. It desperately hunts for alternative internal fuel sources just to survive. This forces billions of delicate neurons to operate in pure panic. Executive function physically shuts down to save finite metabolic energy. Complex problem-solving becomes a literal, mathematical, biological impossibility. The brain starves itself to preserve the heart and internal organs. A shredded physique demands this exact state of systemic starvation. This is not elite discipline. It is self-inflicted structural brain damage. Intermittent fasting combined with severe caloric deficits accelerates this neural rot. The neural networks literally shrink due to chronic daily underfeeding. Inflammation markers skyrocket across the entire central nervous system immediately. The biological cost of visible veins is invisible, severe cognitive decline. Every skipped meal starves the prefrontal cortex slightly further into decay. The brain cannot execute friction-free work without heavy caloric resources. Willpower cannot override millions of years of evolutionary famine programming. The starving brain forces human attention toward food and immediate survival. It completely blocks the biological capacity for abstract, long-term strategic thought. The aesthetic obsession destroys the capacity to generate elite wealth. Wealth generation requires complex problem-solving and extreme, sustained mental endurance. A starved prefrontal cortex cannot hold attention on complex financial data. The modern fitness routine engineers a weak, docile, easily distracted mind. The individual feels productive simply because they lifted heavy weights today. Meanwhile, their actual cognitive machinery is rusting and breaking down rapidly. The brain misinterprets the severe caloric deficit as an incoming predator. It locks the autonomic nervous system in sympathetic fight-or-flight mode permanently. This constant biological alarm bell fries the adrenal glands completely. The individual experiences extreme burnout but blames their weak work ethic. They never realize their strict diet is the actual biological assassin. The biological cost of maintaining a six-pack. A permanent, highly visible six-pack is a severe biological anomaly. Human evolution never designed the body for extreme, perpetual leanness. Fat is the absolute essential building block of healthy neural tissue. The human brain is composed of roughly 60% pure fat. Myelin is the thick fatty sheath insulating every single neural pathway. This biological insulation guarantees fast, sharp, elite cognitive electrical processing. Maintaining a shredded six-pack requires stripping natural fat from the entire body. Eventually, the starving system steals essential fat from the brain itself. Myelin sheaths erode violently under chronic, severe caloric deficits. When myelin degrades, neural electrical signals slow down dramatically and randomly. Thoughts become incredibly sluggish. Reaction times plummet to embarrassing levels. Severe brain fog becomes a permanent, daily biological reality. This is the unglamorous, terrifying biological cost of aesthetic perfection. The human nervous system begins to literally short-circuit and fail. Men destroy their natural testosterone and their brain mass simultaneously. This lethal secret is heavily guarded by the billion-dollar fitness industry. They sell synthetic pre-workouts while intentionally hiding the structural brain damage. The physical ideal marketed to young men is a neurological nightmare. Operating at 5% body fat guarantees severe clinical anhedonia. The pleasure and motivation centers of the brain physically shut down entirely. Dopamine receptors require abundant metabolic energy to synthesize and bind properly. Starvation blocks this entire neurochemical process from happening at all. The shredded individual loses the physical biological capacity to feel joy. They achieve their absolute dream physique but feel absolutely nothing inside. This is limbic depression engineered directly by extreme dietary restriction. The aesthetic goal becomes an inescapable, miserable biological prison. The body looks ready for war, but the mind is completely dead. The fitness industry profits endlessly from this exact cycle of misery. They sell the cure to the exact disease they actively engineered. Keeping men obsessed with protein macros keeps them cognitively weak. A cognitively weak man cannot challenge the financial or social status quo. Why low body fat destroys cognitive function? Elite cognitive function relies entirely on a foundation of absolute biological safety. The brain must feel completely secure to perform deep, uninterrupted work. Low body fat mathematically signals a severe, life-threatening famine environment. The hypothalamus detects this artificial starvation state almost immediately. It triggers a cascading, systemic, and violent hormonal panic response. Thyroid hormone production crashes instantly to preserve remaining cellular energy. Cortisol levels explode rapidly to mobilize emergency muscle and fat stores. This toxic neurochemical cocktail destroys high-level cognitive function entirely. The hippocampus, responsible for memory consolidation, shrinks rapidly under high cortisol. Learning new, complex skills becomes a literal physical biological impossibility. The human operating system downgrades to its absolute most primitive level. It only thinks about food, physical survival, and conserving basic energy. A shredded man simply cannot outwork a fully nourished competitor mentally. The nourished brain processes complex data variables at lightning speeds. The starved brain processes basic data through thick biological mud. This clearly explains the secret, silent depression behind elite physical physiques. They possess zero biological energy for genuine joy, creativity, or extreme ambition. Low body fat is a direct, paved path to modern intellectual poverty. The biological hardware simply refuses to run high-level, complex software. True elite performers understand this harsh metabolic reality perfectly. Billionaires and elite global strategists do not walk around chronically shredded. They feed their brains copious amounts of high-quality fats and carbohydrates. They actively prioritize neural horsepower over cheap, visible physical aesthetics. They understand perfectly that the brain is a high-performance, gas-guzzling engine. Starving the engine destroys the entire vehicle from the inside out. The modern fitness influencer cannot compete in the modern intellectual arena. Their brain is entirely too busy fighting off perceived daily starvation. They are biologically locked out of the elite flow state entirely. The hidden danger of cortisol and muscle building. Modern muscle building relies entirely on aggressively breaking down physical tissue. Intense, daily resistance training creates massive spikes in systemic biological inflammation. The human body uses cortisol to manage this severe physical trauma. Cortisol is highly toxic to delicate, complex human brain cells. Chronic heavy training without adequate caloric fuel creates a lethal cortisol storm. The adrenal glands pump this corrosive stress hormone endlessly into the blood. The brain marinates in toxic inflammatory cytokines every single day. This causes severe, compounding oxidative stress deep within the neural networks. The hidden danger lies directly in the absolute lack of biological recovery. Chronically shredded physique prevents optimal parasympathetic nervous system recovery entirely. The physical body remains permanently trapped in a sympathetic biological overdrive. It is constantly fighting a violent, invisible internal biological war. This silent war destroys the natural human dopamine baseline entirely. Natural motivation evaporates completely. Basic daily discipline requires monumental, exhausting, and painful conscious effort. The local gym becomes a daily site of active biological decay. The central nervous system completely fries under this relentless daily pressure. Neural pathways literally burn out entirely from chronic, forced overstimulation. Extreme physical discipline rapidly mutates into severe, irreversible biological punishment. The microglia, the essential immune cells of the human brain, become hyperactive. Instead of quietly cleaning the brain, they start attacking perfectly healthy neurons. This is severe neuroinflammation driven directly by the modern hustle and fitness culture. The individual falsely thinks they are building an unstoppable, elite mindset. Biologically, they are aggressively inducing early-onset neurodegeneration and chronic physical fatigue. The human body is not a machine that can be endlessly abused. It is a highly sensitive biological organism that demands equilibrium and fuel. When violently forced out of equilibrium, the brain pays the ultimate price. The blind pursuit of the perfect physique inevitably destroys the perfect mind. How to optimize your baseline without shrinking your brain. Reclaiming cognitive dominance requires completely abandoning the modern toxic aesthetic illusion. The true global elite optimize solely for maximum neural horsepower, not vascularity. The brain absolutely requires adequate body fat to function brilliantly and flawlessly. Returning to a natural, highly nourished biological baseline is absolutely mandatory. It stops the violent myelin erosion and cortical shrinking immediately. The brain must be heavily fueled with high-quality fats and complex carbohydrates. Chronic physical training volume must be lowered strategically to reduce toxic cortisol spikes. The vagus nerve must be activated daily to enter deep parasympathetic recovery. This rapidly flushes toxic metabolic waste completely from the neural pathways. Lead executive function returns rapidly once the artificial starvation finally ends. The prefrontal cortex physically expands back to its optimal, powerful, dominant size. Deep focus becomes entirely frictionless, automatic, and highly sustainable. Memory retention sharpens immediately to elite, highly competitive global levels. The modern human being must deliberately choose between a shredded torso or cognitive supremacy. The highest global earners always prioritize their central nervous system above cheap aesthetics. True modern power is strictly mental, not merely physical or muscular. Rebuilding the shattered dopamine baseline requires totally abandoning the extreme fitness cult. It requires eating strategically for cognitive stamina, not for cheap Instagram validation. This clinical breakdown sets the required theoretical foundation for your biological recovery. However, theoretical knowledge without exact execution guarantees absolute failure. The exact, step-by-step clinical resources required to rebuild your neural pathways are located in the description below. Go to the description right now and access these elite optimization protocols. Applying these resources guarantees you will reclaim your cognitive dominance, eliminate chronic brain fog, and completely bypass your competition. Subscribe to this channel immediately to join the absolute minority operating at peak biological performance. Stop trading your intelligence for an aesthetic. Reclaim your nervous system today.